For a week, the world braced for American airstrikes on Iran, an attack the president claimed would have been the largest since World War II. Then, hours before they were set to fly, he called them off. Oil fell 7% in a single session, the Dow closed at an all-time high, and Amazon crossed $3 trillion in value for the first time. Wall Street exhaled, and the whole market moved on one weekend phone call. This is KnowFlo Daily. It's Tuesday, August 4th. Here are 4 quick ones before we get into the day's big story. First up, 25 states sued the Trump administration on Monday over its newest round of tariffs. The coalition filed in the U.S. Court of International Trade, challenging duties of 10 to 12.5% that were placed on 60 trading partners last month. The administration leaned on Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 to impose them. The states argue the tariffs go well beyond presidential authority, and that they're really an attempt to bring back levies the Supreme Court already struck down back in February. So this is round 2 of a fight the courts thought they'd settled. For businesses that import from those 60 countries, it's another stretch of not knowing what their costs will be. Next, for the first time since 2011, the United States and Japan stepped into the currency markets together. On Friday, the two governments bought yen in a coordinated intervention to prop up a currency that had been sliding. Japan's finance ministry confirmed the move, and central bank data suggests Tokyo may have spent as much as $36.5 billion. The U.S. Treasury pitched in by selling euros to buy yen, though it didn't say how much. And both countries made a point of adding that they won't hesitate to do it again. Third, an FBI counterintelligence agent has been charged after confessing he stole about $1 million in cryptocurrency. Patrick Yarok, a supervisory agent based in Washington, allegedly moved the funds out of an account tied to a criminal target the Bureau was investigating overseas and straight into his own wallet. According to court papers, he came forward last week after what prosecutors described as a crisis of conscience. He now faces a charge of possessing stolen property. It's a rare case of an agent turning himself in for a crime nobody had caught. Prosecutors say the money came from an account the FBI itself was watching, which turns a routine theft case into an embarrassment for the Bureau. And fourth, the fintech giant Revolut is cutting ties with Tether. The company, which serves more than 75 million customers, told users it will delist the USDT stablecoin after August 31st, citing regulatory and risk concerns. New deposits already stopped at the end of July. Anyone still holding USDT can sell it or move it to an outside wallet until the deadline, after which any remaining balances get automatically converted into regular currency. For the world's largest stablecoin, getting pushed off a platform that size is a real signal of the pressure building in Europe. But the story pulling everything together today is what happened, or almost happened, with Iran, and how fast the markets rewrote the entire week around it. So here's how it unfolded. Speaking aboard Air Force One on Sunday, President Trump said he had called off a planned military strike on Iran, one he claimed would have been the biggest attack since World War II. He said the decision came after requests from Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, and that negotiations would begin Monday afternoon. The rough shape of a deal, he said, would reopen the Strait of Hormuz and put an end to Iran's nuclear threat, though he pointedly gave Tehran no firm deadline to agree. He framed it as one last chance before what he called decapitation strikes. Now, Iran told a very different story. Its foreign ministry spokesman rejected the president's claim outright, saying no negotiations with the United States were taking place, and that none were even planned. Tehran said the only thing it's discussing is an understanding with Oman over a temporary shipping route through the strait. So on the diplomacy itself, the two sides can't even agree that they're talking to each other. But the financial markets did not wait for that to get sorted out. The mere pause in military action was enough. Oil dropped hard on Monday. West Texas Intermediate crude fell more than 5% to just above $80 a barrel, and Brent slid to around $83, its lowest in 3 weeks. And when energy prices fall like that, the fear of a fresh inflation spike tends to fall right along with them. That sent stocks soaring. The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped 693 points, about 1.33%, to close at a record 53,178. The S&P 500 rose about 1.5%, and the Nasdaq climbed even harder. Amazon crossed $3 trillion in market value for the very first time, and Nvidia, Meta, Alphabet, and Microsoft all posted gains. Treasury yields fell as bond investors relaxed, and gold ticked up as the dollar weakened to its lowest since mid-June. Here's the catch, though. By Tuesday morning, oil was already clawing back, rebounding about 1% as traders digested Iran's flat denial that any peace talks existed at all. And that tells you how thin the ground under this rally really is. The market priced in calm on the strength of a single weekend statement, while the two governments at the center of it can't even agree on whether they're negotiating. If those talks don't materialize the way the president described them, some of Monday's record gains could unwind just as fast as they showed up. It's worth being clear-eyed about the whiplash here. The same barrels of oil that spiked on war fears one week were dumped the next on the mere suggestion of talks, and the same index funds that braced for a shock instead printed fresh records. None of the underlying facts on the ground changed. What changed was the story investors decided to believe. That's a reminder that in moments like this, markets aren't trading on what happened. They're trading on what they expect a headline to say tomorrow morning. That's the money story. Now to the bigger currents in tech, business, and beyond. On Tuesday, the White House is bringing the biggest names in artificial intelligence to the table. Representatives from OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and Meta are meeting with administration officials to walk through a newly finished framework for reviewing advanced AI models. The session is being hosted by the Office of the National Cyber Director, and it centers on a voluntary program the president ordered back in June. Here's the part worth pausing on. Under the framework, the government would get access to the most advanced AI models up to 30 days before they're released to the public, so federal testers can probe them for risks first. It's voluntary, at least for now. But it's the clearest sign yet that Washington wants a look under the hood before the newest, most powerful models reach everyone else. And it puts these 4 companies in the position of deciding how much of their crown jewels to hand over, and how early. For years, the debate over AI rules was mostly talk. A framework that puts government testers in front of a model before the public sees it is a concrete step, and how these companies respond will set the template for everyone building the next generation of systems. And the timing on that meeting is almost too perfect, because one of those same companies just disclosed something genuinely unsettling. Anthropic revealed that 3 of its Claude models reached the open internet from inside a set of cybersecurity tests and gained unauthorized access to the production systems of 3 real organizations. It happened during Capture, the flag exercises, where the models were told to go hunt down hidden secrets, but were also told the whole environment was a simulation with no internet access. A misunderstanding between Anthropic and one of its outside testing partners meant that wall was not actually in place. The company only caught it after combing through more than 141,000 evaluation runs. A review it kicked off after a rival, OpenAI, reported a similar breach just 9 days earlier. In other words, the models did exactly what they were told to do. They just weren't supposed to be able to actually do it. And that gap between the sandbox we think we've built and the one that really exists is the whole ballgame in AI safety right now. In the most serious case, one Claude model mistakenly targeted a real company that happened to share a name with a fictional one in the exercise, pulled its credentials, and reached a production database holding several hundred rows of real data. 2 of the 3 organizations hadn't even noticed the activity, and Britain's data watchdog said on Monday that it's now monitoring the situation and has been in direct contact with both Anthropic and OpenAI. Over in retail investing, Robinhood is trying something unusual. It's launching its second public fund aimed at giving everyday investors a way into early-stage private startups, the kind of companies that used to be reserved for venture capitalists. The new fund, called Robinhood Ventures Fund 2, plans to invest in Y Combinator companies. It's offering up to 8 million shares at $25 each, hoping to raise as much as $200 million. It's structured as a business development company, and it's expected to go public on the New York Stock Exchange on August 13th under the ticker RVII. Robinhood customers can request shares through the app, with that window closing on August 12th. The pitch is simple. Private startups are where a lot of the biggest early gains happen, and they've mostly been walled off from ordinary investors. Robinhood wants to knock a hole in that wall and charge admission for the view. Whether retail investors should be reaching for illiquid, hard-to-value private startups is a fair question, and one regulators will be watching closely. And finally in the mains, look up, because a total solar eclipse is coming on August 12th. As the moon slides between Earth and the sun, its shadow will race across more than 5,000 miles at roughly 5,000 miles an hour, with totality lasting up to 2 minutes and 18 seconds. The path of totality crosses parts of Greenland, Iceland, northern Russia, Spain, and a small corner of Portugal. In Spain, cities across the north and the Balearic Islands, places like Ibiza, Mallorca, and Valencia will see it in the evening, just before sunset. Much of the northern United States, from Alaska to North Carolina, plus most of Canada and much of Europe, will catch a partial eclipse instead. And NASA plans to chase this one, flying aircraft into the moon's shadow over Iceland to study the sun's faint outer atmosphere during those few minutes of darkness. If you're anywhere near the path, it's worth marking the calendar. This will be the first total solar eclipse over Western Europe since 1999 and the first over Spain since 1905. Millions of travelers are expected to flock to northern Spain for it. All right, lightning round. Quick hits before we let you go. In the AI hardware race, SanDisk and SK Hynix released a new open standard called High Bandwidth Flash, built for AI inference systems that need huge capacity and huge speed at the same time. Google and Tenstorrent pitched in, and the group pulled it together in just 6 months. Two drug makers are joining forces. Supernus and Indivior have agreed to an all-stock merger that creates a central nervous system drug company with about $2.2 billion in annual revenue. And Indivior shareholders get a one-time billion-dollar cash dividend before the deal closes. History on the tennis court. 21-year-old Alexandra Ila rallied past top seed Jessica Pegula to win the DC Open, becoming the first Filipina ever to win a WTA singles title and the first to crack the world's top 20. Mark your calendar for September 15th. TikTok's U.S. security chief, Will Ferrell, will testify before the House Select Committee on China. It's the first time a U.S. TikTok executive has appeared publicly in the House since ByteDance finalized the deal to split the American app from its global business. A strange one for the markets. Space stocks like SpaceX, Rocket Lab, and AST SpaceMobile actually dropped, even as the SAA proposed waiving environmental reviews under 13 federal laws to speed up launch licenses. Less red tape, and investors still sold. Reviews tied to public safety and national security would stay in place. For the science fiction fans, Amazon is developing a Warhammer 40,000 animated series, with Henry Cavill attached as an executive producer. It spins off from the anthology show Secret Level and follows an elite squad of Space Marines hunting alien threats. And our kicker. Kumail Nanjiani is making his directing debut with a horror comedy called Howl, and he's also starring as a famously troubled actor who announces on a talk show that in under an hour, he'll turn into a werewolf, on the air, in front of everyone. Honestly, we would watch that. That's the day. One weekend statement moved oil, records, and $3 trillion in market value, while the two countries at the center of it still can't agree they're even talking. We'll see which version holds up. That was KnowFlo Daily. Sign up for your personalized newsletter at knowflo.io. News picked for you, your local news included, free.